In this episode of NSFW show, we interview, and one of the best interviews we've ever done in the history of this show, Ernest Cline, the author of Ready Player One. We get the full story of fanboys, how he came up with Ready Player One, where it's gonna go, the movie, nothing is left unturned in this interview. You gotta watch it, and also, in the middle, I completely embarrass myself, and it's hilarious. It's really all coming up on this edition of NSFW show.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for NSFW is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is NSFW episode 134, recorded on July 3rd, 2012. Actually, it was in Empire Strikes Back.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to Squarespace.com and use offer code NSFW7. And now they offer free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions.
Sunny skies and highs in the upper 80s. Overnight tonight, partly cloudy, mild, with those temperatures dropping down into the mid-70s. Now, we've got some big changes here for the upcoming work week. Starting tomorrow, we're going to have a volcanic eruption right near Charlottesville, and it's going to make things rather toasty across the area. We're going to see lava spill out into central Virginia and make temperatures in Richmond at 350 degrees, Fredericksburg at 345, Charlottesville, the hot spot, at 400. Not as hot off towards the Tidewater. A little bit more comfortable with highs near 100 degrees. The reason why, we're going to have tidal waves moving in ahead of this, a global superstorm developing off towards the Atlantic Ocean. This thing is headed our way, but the key to the forecast, right before this thing makes landfall, it is going to be deflected by Godzilla. Now, a lot can change between now and then. We're looking at the latest data. We'll continue to bring you the very latest. I do want to encourage you, though, that if you ever do see a sleeping coyote, do not wake it. Bad idea. Okay, here's the forecast. Volcano, 350 there for Monday. Global superstorm on Tuesday. We could see maybe about 200 inches of rainfall, wind gusts up to 1,000 miles an hour. Godzilla Wednesday, I'll be honest, I have no idea what's going to happen on that day. After that, though, how about this to finish off the work week? Low humidity, lots of sunshine.
All right, look, that's it. I'm calling it, man. Weekend. We gotta start the show. That's it. That means I'm just out of nowhere. It's gotta be go time for NSFW, the new show full of wind, the new sauce for the web and nets, the show that is nominally safe for work. Howdy, folks. I'm your BFF, Mr. Brian Brushwood. And over here, humping exactly nothing, is my BFF, Mr. Justin Robert Young, looking suspiciously like one Gilbert Gottfried. How you doing there, Gilbert JRY?
It's my new dance craze that's going around the nation. It's called the Give It Back.
The what?
What you do is you crook your elbows there, and you look like you're holding a package, and then you make a weird face, and you just pump your arms out.
It looks a little bit like Fat Rick Gilbert Gottfried. Fat Gilbert Gottfried is what it looks like.
I just want to let you know, I'm not the man of 1,000 faces, Brian. I really only have two. I'm not very skilled at this impression thing.
You have
so
neutral.
Everything kind of looks like Fat Rick.
That's all you got. All right.
So try the Give It Back real quick. Can you play the music again? Play the music.
The Give It Back?
Give It Back.
The Give It Back? Hold on. What do I do for the Give It Back? Walk me through this again.
All right, so you have like your arms, and they're kind of clawed like you were holding a log, right?
Or some breasts, right?
Or I mean, I don't know. All right. And then you just kind of push it out to the beat, right? And you just make a weird face. That's good. That's good. You're feeling it now.
Okay,
I feel like we got a good show going.
All right.
We got a nice. That was like a little smelling salts we just put under the nose of the show. And
sounded,
now we're ready to roll.
It sounded a little bit like you said we had lice, but that's totally cool. Hey, man, we're trying something a little bit different.
I have body bugs.
If you like tub treats, wait till you try body bugs. They'll make you eat a neighbor's face. Hey, man.
You know what the worst part about that is that we had the whole Ira Sockman bit, and like this week, I'm like, oh my God, I just thought of like 8 ways that bit could have been way funnier.
Why are you living in the past, bro? This is NSFW. We live to fail again. This is what we do, sir.
Exactly. Why think about a bit that sucked last week when we can do so many more sucky bits this week?
All right, speaking of awesome bits, which is I'm sure what you were talking about, tonight we have an extraordinarily special guest, and so good that we didn't even feel good about bringing him on right at the outset. We didn't want to have him sit and endure 20 minutes of our horse apple shenanigan before finally we were able to give him our full attention. We're keeping him behind the curtain, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all right, so here's the deal. We are, the schedule changed at Twit. And so now there's a little bit more open space. Wide open spaces, as the Dixie Chicks have taught us, for NSFW.
I'm
2
sorry,
hours.
Did you just call the Dixie Chicks horse? Is that what I just heard?
What?
What?
Said, no.
You said the Dixie Chicks, what? No. You said the Dixie Chicks have wide open spaces, which I can only mean.
No, that's a song that they sing.
It sounded like you're talking
about.
about.
Or not that song
Pretty
is
sure.
about their nethers.
Pretty sure you're talking about distended vaginas.
Well, that's their song then. I mean, I'm just saying that was the name of the song that they did.
It's like you're like, bro, that's their word. We don't get to use
their word. I can't say their word. It's their word.
All right.
So we have a 2-hour show. We have a block that we can do a 2-hour show. So fix in a little bit of us fiddling, with the technical stuff at the beginning, a little after show.
A little afterglow.
But I think what we're going to do is kind of have a little bit of a different format for the show. And we're going to try it out tonight. If it works, maybe we continue to do it. But what we found, Brian, is that we would have awesome guests on, and we would just give them nothing to do.
Ignore
because
them.
We enjoy talking to each other. And we wanted to make that more of the show because people like it, and we like doing it. But at the same time, we'd have great guests like Hack 5 Darren, who was on a couple weeks ago, and we would just run right over him.
Oh, no, totally. We'll be like, no, that's great about the networks and stuff. But seriously, right? Hobos having homosexual sex, right? How crazy would that be?
Exactly. And what if that's how they run for mayor again?
Mayor of the internet. And then plus they have heat vision, as all hobos do, so then they can attack Brett.
Okay, so here's how weird the show had gotten with guests before. Is that we had Hack 5 Darren on and we just ran over him with nonsense. And I felt terrible about it. Brian felt terrible about it.
I talked you off that ledge. You almost committed suicide. That was pretty dark.
All right.
I don't know why you would bring that up on the show.
So I was at a party with Hack 5 Darren this weekend, and I didn't even realize he's from South Florida. We had a million things to talk about that we just didn't get into because me and Brian were just having a nonsense talk. So what we're going to do is at the beginning of the show today, and maybe in the future, is we're going to have this. The me and Brian go back and forth.
This is here's the problem: is we were leaning off. We opened the curtain and we had our big guest, and then you and I would run in front of the guest and do our soft shoe pre-show. You have to get ready for the guest who's right in front of you. And then and that was awkward. So now we're keeping the guest behind the curtain and we're still soft shoeing.
Well, even worse, we would have kind of shorthand and back and forth about stuff. It would be what if, all right, so it's the presidential debate for the homo presidency. And it's I'm old reach around Ezekiel, and I think that I should be the president. And then, Darren, what presidential candidate are you?
And Darren says, I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about.
Exactly. So what we want to do is we'll do a silliness up top, and then we'll have an interview when we have a guest. We'll do more of they're in a hang. It'll be similar to this, but it's going to be about them. It's going to be about stuff that they know how to talk about, and it'll be super fun. And then we'll do a bit, which is what we're going to do at the end of this episode, because have we mentioned who our guest is? That we went into this whole thing?
Nope.
Who's our guest tonight?
Okay, look, a friend of as of tonight, he'll be a friend of the show, but we're talking to the author of the best-selling, the most culturally relevant book about video gaming and 80s pop culture in my lifetime, Ernest Cline, who lives right here in Austin, Texas. Unfortunately, I live too far south for him to drive all the way down here, but he's going to be joining us by Skype. I'm going to give him a call in 15 minutes and 23 seconds. It is going to be legendary. We're going to talk about his book, Ready Player One. We're going to talk about his amazing story. We're going to talk about the amazing giveaway that we are trying to game so that one of our own can win and put a big old fat tramp stamp Diamond Club symbol on the back of a DeLorean. And then we're gonna face off against the wizard himself. We're gonna play some 80s pop trivia, and that put together entirely by Chat Realm, which I haven't seen anything of.
Yeah, and you guys are just gonna smoke me like a sausage.
Right, mainly because we were alive in the 80s. When were you born?
83. So the entirety of the 80s, the oldest I ever was 7.
Yeah, but that's like I picked up a bunch of stuff from the 60s because that's what was in syndication when I was a kid in the early 80s.
How old are you?
I'm 73. I thought we went over this. I look fantastic.
I picked up a lot of the 60s he's talking about is the 1860s.
They used to syndicate old, oh man, I can't even make a relevant reference to the 1860s. This is like, it's minor 49 to mania, is what they said in the 1960s.
I mean, the 1860s, it was like, oh, I remember the medicine show and the diving donkey.
Although, it's like the closest I have to any kind of experience in the 19th century is rewatching the Say, Say, Say video with you again with Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney. All right, so look, we got some time here. What are the things we want? I know we want to talk. We want to check in on the book and maybe read some more samples. But I feel like we should hold off until we actually get our famous author friend in here.
I want to wait until the end on that.
Yeah.
I want to go over this idea with Ernie, and I want to get his 2 cents on it. I saw Spider-Man last night. Have you seen Spider-Man?
Oh my God, Lisa, I know you've got an axe to grind. You've got a machined web shooter to snatch in someone's face.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because I don't know whether or not you're on the opposite side of this. Number one, let me just get this out. It's the best Spider-Man movie ever. And it's not close. It's not close between any of the Raimi. And I love Raimi. Love Raimi. It's not close.
All right. Now, first of all, you're talking about Sam Raimi, the director of the first 3 Spider-Man movies.
Absolutely. This one, starring Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, it is far and away the best Spider-Man. Not only is it the best Spider-Man movie, it's the best Spider-Man origin story ever told. Comics, movies.
Real quick, I'm sorry. Justin, there's just some legal issues here. It's come to our attention that there are some disclosures that need to be made. You seem awfully excited about this Spider-Fellow movie, but unfortunately, we're looking at your portfolio, and if we're not mistaken, you own this movie. We're afraid of the pump and dump. It's not me. It's the folks over at Mad Money. They're very upset about this. Can you do us a favor and just disclose your holdings going into this?
I feel like you can't do the voice unless you have a sock. You need to get a sock.
Oh, that wasn't me. I didn't do it. I was just lip syncing.
For the first time ever, Brian is pandering to the audio listeners, and he's like, "No, it wasn't me. I didn't say it. It was another character."
Why would I need
Brian
a sock?
Sockman.
Bryra Sockman came in and just started talking. I had nothing to do with it.
All right, so yes, I own it in the movie draft, and whatever. Okay, I said how good the Hunger Bow and Arrow Festival was, and
the Hunger Arrows.
And I said how great Captain America 3 was earlier this summer. I thought they were all great. Spider-Man was fantastic. But let me ask you this, because were you one of the people that's like, "Bah, why are they remaking it? Sucks."
I'm gonna say no, but secretly the answer is yes. And what I mean by that is I wasn't this time for Spider-Man, but I will say yes because I was that guy for Batman Begins. And I was 100% wrong with Batman Begins. It had been plenty of time. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was 20 minutes after Batman and Robin. I was ready to hear a new Batman origin story really well told by Christopher Nolan. So likewise, it doesn't matter that if it was 5 minutes since Spider-Man 3, we needed a well-told Spider-Man movie immediately after Spider-Man 3. So now here's the other thing too. there was a fantastic graphic on BuzzFeed, I think, where somebody boiled down the different connections between the different iterations of Spider-Man. Because you got like Spider-Man 2099, you got Spider-Man Noir, you got Spider-Man Ultimate Spider-Man, you got the original Spider-Man, you got the reboot of the 1960s universe and all these things. And some of them, Spider-Man's an adult, some of them he's a high school kid, sometimes he's a college kid, sometimes it's organic shooters, sometimes it's mechanical shooters. And the fact is, it doesn't matter. If whatever it is you have to complain about this movie, just realize if you're going to complain about that in the movie, you also have to retroactively complain about that in these various comic books.
Absolutely. And furthermore, I understand critics who go see movies and aren't necessarily comic book people and don't have really any kind of connection to Spider-Man being like, dinging the movie for like, seen it before. What did they add to the origin? Yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Like, I get that. But if you are a fan of comic books or genre entertainment in general, you do not have a leg to stand on considering this movie is good. If the movie sucked, you could say, okay, they rushed the movie. They should have waited, gotten better talent, not just put it through the pipeline so they could keep the rights, which is what happened. Sony made this movie so they could keep the rights.
Right.
That's not a secret. You know, it happened this soon because of that.
Right.
However, because it's good, the argument's irrelevant. We got the best Spider-Man movie ever. So however it happened is irrelevant.
Okay, so now tell me this, because I haven't seen it yet. And number one, yeah. I have long hoped, I'm not going to say suspected, but at least hoped that this would be the big summer surprise. This would be the movie that everyone thought like, we'll see. And then when it came out, hopefully it was at the right time and it was the right story and it blew everyone away. The one thing that kind of tugged at me was that this soon, it's not boring rewatching another origin story, just slightly different. His parents are scientists and he has mechanical shooters.
No, I mean, that's a premise, you know, and there are touchstones in which, you know, the story is told. And we know the touchstones. It's picked on, disaffected kid, is raised by his aunt and his uncle. The uncle dies. Great power, great responsibility. He goes out and becomes Spider-Man.
Right.
But that doesn't matter. I mean, that's not the story. That's the premise. Those are the
checkpoints that make it a Spider-Man story.
The way we get there is brilliant. It's fantastically told. And the lizard as a villain is very much like what Scarecrow was in Batman Begins.
Very believable.
It wasn't the best villain. It was the villain that needed to be there to explain how our hero gets to where he needs to be.
So tell me this, like you compared it to Batman Begins, which to me, what made Batman Begins what it was that it managed to be a totally cheeseless comic book movie. Somehow they showed me an action adventure movie.
We disagree on this, and we have disagreed on this, specifically at the Dragon Con frame rate.
Sure.
Because I don't buy your premise that it was completely believable up until the final 15 minutes.
Okay, but regardless, certainly
it was awesome.
Right.
It was completely awesome.
Right.
The entire time.
Well, it didn't feel. I'm not saying it's believable. What I'm saying is it didn't feel like a comic book movie until the last 10 minutes of Batman Begins. Is that what it was like with the Spider-Man movie?
Well, I'll say this: you get an hour into the movie, and it's this story about a kid who's super nerdy and is falling in love, has this budding relationship with this other super nerdy girl, and the interactions are fantastic. And he has this conflict with his aunt and uncle who are raising him because his parents left him. And then like an hour in, you're like, wow, like we haven't even seen him in the suit, and I'm totally cool with it. Like it's just it's a great story, and the characters are so well drawn. And Uncle Ben is not just an old man prop who you squeeze and says, "Oh, Peter, I love you. Great power, great responsibility."
All right, no, that's legit. So okay.
He's fantastic. So the two things that I have a major problem with is anybody who says, that it was too soon to be remade, even though it's good. And number two, anybody who bitches about the fact that it's just another origin story, because we've seen this origin story a billion times.
Sure.
$1 billion. If you read comics,
Okay, look, okay.
twice a year.
But you realize this is why I will be the last person to harp on this problem, because I was the one defending Cars 2 or Cars 1. Sorry, Cars 2 apparently sucked. I didn't see it. But
Yeah,
Cars,
it did.
yes, it was Doc Hollywood with Cars. But you know what? Just because this is a song we've heard before doesn't mean that a masterful musician can't make me fall in love with it all again. If Lady Gaga starts playing Amazing Grace, I don't roll my eyes and be like, oh, it's just Amazing Grace with the meat dress. You know, it's like I'm so glad to hear something new from somebody so talented.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say it's awesome, and I just, it's one of the things that, like, reading stuff today about, you know, where the criticism for the movie comes, I get it from normies, and I'm not talking to normal people, I'm not talking to your mom or your sister, I'm talking to you guys. Anybody's watching this show, you should have better known better, and if you're bitching about it, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Also, mechanical web shooters, let me just do this very quickly.
Okay, wow, hold on, real quick. For those of you guys keeping score, on July 3rd, 2012, this is the single nerdiest / geekiest that Justin Robert Young has ever appeared in public. Go ahead.
Okay, and it's about to get way worse. It had to be probably 1999 or 2000 when on probably Ain't It Cool News, I first read that Sam Raimi was going to go with organic web shooters as opposed to mechanical web shooters. And I have ruined conversations for the intervening decade, specifically when I was young and full of righteous indignation, screaming and yelling about how it takes away from the character to have this be, you know, just wrist jizz. And not a...
Wrist Jizz was, by the way, the original title. They had to renegotiate in order to get Spider-Man in there.
Exactly. It takes away from the character to not make him a scientist and not make half of his powers something that comes out of his head and augmenting what happens to him physically. And if I could go back in time, having seen this movie, I would say, scream louder. Ruin more conversation.
If you go back in time,
you're right.
You're just
because
like...
you're right. Because this movie is awesome in large part because he is that character.
God,
because he is the scientist. Because he is the inventor.
I could so see, you rub the lamp, the genie comes out, and it's just like, what do you want to do? Well, I want superpowers. Or it's like, I'm going to give you time travel. What do you want to do? I want to stop the assassination of Kennedy. Or all these things. And it's like, what do you want, Justin? We're like, I want to go back and tell myself that I was right and to shout louder.
And don't hold back. And there's a point where everybody's walking away or they keep trying to change the conversation and you're like, but really, that's this whole point of view. You're ruining it. Like, and everyone stops talking to you, follow them and yell in their ear more. Because now, today, when they go see that movie, everyone will be like, you want to know what? Justin was right.
Hold on, I actually just got a quick note from Ernest Cline because I told him I was going to call him real quick. You want to take a moment and we'll go ahead and thank our sponsors here? Did you get that document all pulled up?
No, I didn't know we had a document.
No, don't you remember? Because we always run down our sponsors here at the NSFW show because we love the people who make this show possible. In an era where Twit is doing the responsible thing by culling the underperforming shows and only featuring those front and center who are able to bring in a trusted value for the fine sponsors who make the Twit network possible, we here at the NSFW show always make sure to read, reread, triple read, and quadruple check the sponsorship, which is why Justin had previously printed out this that he's going to read now.
Squarespace is focusing this month on free domain registration for annual plan subscriptions.
Wait, shut up. Free? Did you say free domains for people who annual subscribe?
Brian, there's you can now hold dominion on the internet for free.
Domain. You can have your own fiefdom.
You want to know what it used to take to hold a domain?
Yes. You had to curry favor from a lord.
Blood and steel. That's what.
And you had to have maybe some blackmail. Maybe the.
Well, all right. I mean, Brian, we don't have to make it racial.
No, like the Duke, the photos of the Duke's wife.
Don't make it scatological either.
Maybe.
Listen, it didn't take mail from an African-American gentleman to get you a dominion over something. Nor did it take a duke, whatever the duke means.
A duke is a person. He's like an archbishop of Duke.
I don't know how large yours are, but I mean, a person seems like a little excessive.
Okay, look,
maybe it's a medical problem.
all I'm saying is that it used to be you had to be large and in charge, but now you can be. Come on. Come on.
You don't need to brag, Bri.
Not anymore. Now you can be here. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Brian Brushwood. It used to be you had to be large and in charge to have domain of the internet. Not no more. You could be as small as Justin Robert Young and still have somebody to shout at. Here's how.
Hey, it's me, Tiny Jerry. I would like to tell you that domain registration and mapping is completely integrated within the sign-up process for Squarespace. This makes setting up a site easier than ever and saves you money. Approximately $15 retail value for domain registrations. Take it from Tiny Jerry. The Squarespace.com is the way to go. And for now, you can use NSFW7 on your offer code at checkout. They're giving you 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. For example, this means 10% off your first month on monthly plans, 10% off your first year on annual plans. It's NSFW7. Tiny Jerry says you can't go wrong.
You realize, Justin, that we are only 3 weeks away from the code being
NSFW8.
NSFW8. All right, look, can we bring our special guest? Can we whip back the curtain and bring out the best thing that ever happened to our stupid show?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you guys to the author of 2011's most talked about books. He is slumming it here with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Ernest Cline.
Woo! Holy cow. Ernie, hold on. Let me actually get your volume turned up here. You have no idea how excited I am. Number one,
I'm excited as well.
This is the closest, and it kills me that this is the closest we gotten to actually hanging out in forever. This is killing me that that I have to be like, I don't know, you want to come on my show, then we can kind of hang out. It's like, what's up with your success and you're being so successful and on tour all the time?
I just got back from on tour just like yesterday, so I apologize. I couldn't make it down there tonight. My kid is actually in the next room with a babysitter, so she may burst in and make a cameo appearance.
So much the better.
Let's keep it quiet. Let's keep it down.
Absolutely. Well, Ernie, let me ask you this, just so we can fill in the listeners. How do you know Brian? When did you first meet Brian?
I first met Brian at the Electric Lounge, which is a now long-vanished club here in Austin, where I used to do spoken word like Poetry Slam, compete at the Poetry Slam, and Brian would open for the Poetry Slam show with his magic show, like an early, iteration of the amazing Brian Brushwood show, where he would swallow fire and kind of blow everybody's mind, and then we would have to get up and try to follow that with poetry. So
I always felt bad about that.
Yeah, that's
okay. So what was? What were your first impressions? So you see this guy who's
you son of a bitch, Justin, because I did not expect this. Like, I was excited. I thought we'd have Ernie on and we'd reminisce about old times. I did not expect that the moment, within seconds he comes on, you start digging. You're like, seriously, how darky was Brian back in the day?
I'm just asking.
He was amazing. You could tell, you could tell even then that Brian was going places. It was clear. That was back when he had like the rooster hair. I don't know if he still does the rooster hair, but he had serious rooster hair. Time.
No, it was a little rooster. I'm not going to deny the roost. But I'll tell you what. Here's what was crazy to me. Do you realize, like, think back to this. I was talking to Justin about this, and one of the things that really blows me away about your story, and I'm not kidding you here. You hear about a lot of people getting success, and you're like, some other asshole won the lottery. You have no idea. When I was going to the airport and I saw your face on the cover of the Austin Chronicle, standing in front of a DeLorean, and I read about the massive, not only I guess cultural success and all the things that are great about Ready Player One, but the financial success. I was just like, F yes, this, if anybody ever deserved to win it was Ernie Cline, because you had the Cinderella story twice because you had created Fanboys, right? You wrote the script for Fanboys, and in fact, I don't know if you remember this. I was looking at the Internet Archive, and there are posts on my website talking about when I worked your fundraiser when you were going to film Fanboys yourself.
Oh, dude, I totally remember that. And you were one of the first people to like read the script and believe in it, and you wanted to, help out however you could, and did. And I remember you saying that even after like Fanboys seemed like it was never going to get made in that dark time, you're like, you always were like supportive and like, dude, I think you're going to make it. You just need to find the, right channel for your nerdy energy. And I eventually did. But I mean, I never expected that. Like with Ready Player One, like if you've read it, like, like who would be foolish enough to think, oh, this is going to be a New York Times bestseller, having Mechagodzilla fight Ultraman with Voltron. This will be awesome. This is going to, sweep the nation. So I'm still dumbfounded by what's happened.
I mean, but I think that's an example of you kind of being where the puck, is going to be as opposed to where it is. But let's go back to Fanboys. What was that experience like for you in the dark times when you didn't know what was going to happen with this, and you obviously got your chain jerked around a lot?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, initially I wrote it in 1998 when it set before, and when I was holding these fundraisers and trying to get money to make the movie. This is before Episode 1 even came out. So we still all thought Episode 1 could be awesome, and that this would be a movie worth traveling across the country to show your dying friend. And then Episode 1 came out. I waited in line with Brian to see Episode 1.
Yeah, no, that's not a lie. And in fact, actually, Ernie, I don't know if you remember this, but I hesitate to. This is going to get out anyway. I hope nobody destroys this, but there is an archive of our posts from the late 90s that are so old that if you look at the dating format, it actually gives like it's pre Y2K fixed. And there's our discussions on here talking about the amazing stuff. And I remember your phrase stuck with me forever. As much fun as we had back in those days, you described the Phantom Menace as brief islands of awesome surrounded by oceans of suck. And that totally stuck with me, man.
Yeah. I couldn't, that's the problem with that movie is it was the most anticipated movie of all time. A whole generation waited 15 years for a new Star Wars movie with no Star Wars in between. And we spent all that time imagining this movie and looking forward to it. So what movie could ever live up to a whole generation's, kind of lifelong hopes and dreams? Definitely not that one.
Now, have you...
No, that one was terrible. And the funny thing is that considering the futuristic, fantastical premise of Ready Player One, I still do think the most completely unbelievable science fiction plot you have written is Fanboys, where people would want to go see the Phantom Menace so bad.
Dude, it's like you got to wrap your mind around that time. There was a time.
Oh no, I know. I mean, because I was there. I was out waiting in front of it. But it's funny looking at that now, and that story is completely different. Now there's this kind of melancholy sort of tinge to like, oh wait,
all of it, yeah,
this
like oh,
to see that?
Really, this kid's gonna end up disappointed.
Now, okay, so tell me this. Like, are you still angry? Because I finally realized that I'm not angry at the sequels anymore. After the brilliant, I'm sure you saw the Red Letter Media reviews excoriating the Phantom Menace. But like recently, it was this week that somebody put out a parody of What Happened to the Star Wars That I Used to Know. That was brilliantly done, and it was gorgeous, and it was exactly note perfect parody of somebody I used to know. But I just realized that it didn't resonate with anymore because I'm not angry anymore. It's like I've watched The People versus George Lucas. I've watched all the reviews, and at this point, I'm just like I'm done getting fired up about this. Am I alone in that, or do you feel that way?
Well, no, you and I actually, I remember having this conversation with you after Episode 3 came out, and you and I disagreed on Episode 3. Episode 3 was the Star Wars movie I had been waiting since my childhood, since 1983 to see. I loved Episode 3 and thought that they got it right. Anakin versus Obi-Wan, intercut with Yoda versus the Emperor. That hit all my Star Wars buttons, and I loved Episode 3.
Right.
Maybe I know this is probably blasphemy to a lot of people, but I liked it as much as Return of the Jedi, and I love Return of the Jedi.
Wow.
But the first two prequels I could do without. But I'm not angry anymore either. I mean, that's the thing. George Lucas hadn't directed a movie since the original Star Wars either. So he had like a 22-year gap of not directing movies,
Sure,
and then he
sure.
decided to direct the most anticipated movie of all time. So that might have been
But also, and this was something they talked about in the Red Letter Media review. They were talking about how if you look at the culture surrounding it, it was like he came down with a holy relic, and nobody would dare to suggest that he change any of the text that he wrote. And so people were afraid to make any changes, and I think that's part of why it suffered.
Well, yeah, that's why you have a lizard man stepping in poodoo in the middle of my Star Wars movie that I've been waiting 15 years to see and saying, Misa so sorry about a million times. Yusa so sorry, Jar Jar. I agree. Yusa so sorry.
All right, so take us through now. Obviously, and I don't know how much of this you're in a position or even care about talking about, but it was. I remember that the day Scam School launched, I was excited because it was on I think it was Dig before Reddit was Reddit. I think on the front page of Dig was Scam School launching and something about fanboys. And it was a photo of one AT-AT mounting another AT-AT because there was a lot of talk about the compromises that went into that film. After Fanboys came out,
well, hold on. But before we get, I mean, because I'm not as familiar, and I'm sure people who are watching aren't as familiar with just a Cliff Notes version of where it came to before it got adapted. Because I didn't know that there was a plan for you to film it yourself.
Yeah, well, that when I tried to, when Brian was helping me, do fundraisers, and I was trying to, it was going to be my Clerks. I wrote it to be a small little indie movie like El Mariachi or Slacker or Clerks, specifically, where I would make it with local actors with no money. I bought a van, I quit my tech support job, and I was going to try to make it in Austin before episode 1 came out. But the thing that changed all of that is I started to try to make it with a borrowed digital camera and no idea really of what I was doing or how to make a movie or how to light sets or any of that. But I just out of determination, it was going to be how I broke into the film industry. But the thing that changed everything is I wrote a part for Harry Knowles to play himself. I had met Harry just around Austin at the Alamo Draft House and would see him at film, openings and stuff. And as I was writing it, it occurred to me that Harry would be the perfect guy if you were going to try to get, key cards and blueprints of Skywalker Ranch and information on how to break in. Like, Harry is the guy that you would go to, especially in 1998 when everybody was sending him spoilers and drafts of scripts. I remember reading the script for episode 1 like 5 months before the movie came out and listening to the score. Harry somehow had the script and the score like in January, and wouldn't let either leave his room. So I sat on a folding chair in his room and read the script while he played the music for me.
And I remember that you described the script like it had been cut off right at the page where it says the council recognizes Bail Organa, and then that's like all you had, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, but it was crazy because you couldn't hear Jar Jar's voice, and it was all in text, so you didn't know all the problems were not there on the page. It still seemed like it could be awesome.
Sure.
And even when I read the novelization in line for Star Wars in episode 1, even from the novelization, it still seemed like it could be awesome because you imagine the actors performing the dialogue perfectly, and all the fight scenes are perfect, and little Annie, his acting is perfect, and Jar Jar is annoying. But once you see the movie and see how it's all realized in the movie, that's when all the problems like reared their ugly head. So right up until the movie came out, I thought it might still work. But it did not.
Okay, but that's the amazing part. So it's like at this point, there was tremendous hype about Fanboys going into it, and you were going to do it on your own, and it sounded like at the time you just ran out of time, and then the movie came out, and we went and saw the movie. Now, your disappointment with the movie, did that convince you that, well, that's the end of Fanboys?
I was like, well, that was a great idea. But who would do this to their dying friend? I wouldn't do this to my dying friend and take them across the country to see this, this train wreck. But the producer, by then, by writing that part for Harry Knowles to play himself, Harry loved the script and wrote a really glowing review of it on his website, and everybody in Hollywood reads that website. And as a result of that, all these real legitimate producers and studios got interested in the project and thought it was legitimate and not just some nerd in Austin with a van and a camera and a dream. So they and a young producer, Matt Peninciaro, ended up optioning the script for me. And even after episode 1 came out, he didn't hate it as much as I did, but he's like, well, this, this doesn't have anything to do with your script, because your script is about this moment in time of waiting to see episode 1 and looking forward to seeing it, and how that was a unique time in the history of cinema, because there's never going to be anything like Star Wars and what Star Wars meant to our generation, and there's never going to be a 15-year gap of no Star Wars.
Right.
And also, there's still 8 years of crazy Star Wars hysteria between the next 2 prequels from the point where your script is first
and in fact, there was actually talk about making the movie about trying to see the 3rd of the prequels, right? This is the one movie that I want to see before I die or whatever. Now,
right, but maybe he'll finally, pull it off, and maybe this one will be good. But I mean, by the time Episode 3 came out, that was when Kevin. Right after that, I think shortly after that is when Kevin Spacey got a hold of the script, which is like this is like 8 years after I had written it and assumed it was never going to get made. Suddenly, somehow the script found its way to Kevin Spacey, and and he wasn't interested in it as an actor. He had a production company called Trigger Street, and he was looking into producing small indie movies that wouldn't cost that much to make. And he loved the script and thought it captured like that whole kind of facet of fandom that there had never been a movie made about. And he wanted to produce it, and that solved a huge problem that had plagued the script and the project up until that point. In that we didn't have the permission of Lucasfilm. There's no way we could make a movie about Star Wars fandom in Episode 1 without showing Star Wars licensed stuff.
Sure.
But we couldn't. We had no way to call George Lucas and say we want to make this movie about breaking into your house and stealing your stuff. Can we have permission to do that? There was no way to do that. But Kevin Spacey did that, and they put that call right through. And I heard that he set up a meeting on the set of Superman Returns, and that George Lucas came down to Australia scouting locations or something and visited the set and had a conversation with Kevin Spacey in the Lex Luthor garb about fanboys. And the whole time I'm like, you guys are lying to me. There's no way that Kaiser Soze and George Lucas are down in Australia talking about my little nerdy Star Wars movie. But they were, and it happened, and he agreed to read it, and he read it and saw that it was just a sweet little love letter to, growing up loving Star Wars and being excited, having prequel mania. And he said yes. And once he said yes, that's when it suddenly got crazy. And that was like 2005, so 7 years after I'd written it, suddenly George Lucas had said yes. Kevin Spacey was a producer, and then all the major studios were interested in it. They told me one weekend that Steven Spielberg was taking the script home to read, and I didn't sleep or think about anything else.
Holy cow!
That whole week, I know, right? Like, wow, if this could be a DreamWorks movie, how amazing would that be? But DreamWorks ended up not doing it, but as a result of all the interest in it, the Weinstein Company signed on. And at the time, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. This is Bob and Harvey Weinstein, who founded Miramax and made Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and Clerks, and so it just blew my mind.
So now at this point, and this is a beautiful, beautiful Hollywood story. Because like all
and by the way,
stories.
this was it's made all the better because I remember talking to Ernie like where he was within weeks of that transformative moment. Because if I remember the story correctly, Ernie, you were talking about how you were getting calls like, hey, this thing's happening, that thing's happening. But like the defining moment was when they said, can we fly you out? We're on set and Billy D. Williams would like to meet you. Like is that was that the moment?
No, well, the moment was when the Weinstein Company, and that was before we ever went into production. But I was in an airport somewhere, and one of the producers called me and said it didn't go to DreamWorks, but the Weinstein Company wants it, and we just shook hands with Harvey Weinstein, and he wants to produce it. And that's when it became real. That's when they started casting, and that's when Harvey Weinstein, who's one of the most powerful guys in Hollywood, he just started making phone calls and casting the hell out of that movie. And that's when I just got a series of crazy phone calls that said Carrie Fisher just agreed to be in it. Like Princess Leia is going to be in my nerdy Star Wars movie.
Yes.
And then they said Lando was going to be in it. Then Darth Maul, and then just the cast, the amazing cast: Sam Huntington and Chris Marquette and Dan Fogler, who'd won a Tony Award, and Kristen Bell, Veronica Mars.
Absolutely.
It just blew my mind. And but the craziest one was when they told me William Shatner was going to be in it. I just lost my mind. I couldn't believe somehow the dominoes had fallen in such a way that Captain Kirk was going to do a cameo in my Star Wars movie. And that's when they told me that I could play any role in the movie I want, like be an extra. And that's when I said I want to be a Star Trek fan, so I can be in a scene with William Shatner. And I know, so I'm in a scene with William Shatner in Fanboys very briefly. You can see me in the scene, briefly. But that whole day was insane. He was only on the set for one day, and I was really excited about it because I thought that it was going to be my chance to introduce myself to William Shatner and be all impressive because I'm the writer of the movie that he's in. But I didn't plan ahead because I was in a purple Starfleet uniform that whole day, of course. So, yeah, you can imagine how that went. Well, my name's Ernie, and I'm a huge fan. Oh, what a shock! What a shock that you're a huge fan.
I wrote this movie, and I think it was just really great.
Yeah. So he was very sweet. He was very sweet to everybody, but.
all that glitters is not
the whole
gold.
experience-
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead, dude.
sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. We're getting caught in the Skype lag here, but all that glitters is not gold. Things took a turn for it was a little ugly, and it was public, especially online, where this had kind of become a phenomenon originally.
Oh yeah, and that was like 2000. So those first few months of 2006 when we were shooting movie, that was like the most amazing time of my life, being on the set of my own Star Wars movie, with all these actors from the movies on set, and everybody who was making the movie was a Star Wars fan. I remember bringing so it was like an amazing time, and I thought it was gonna and the director was like the biggest Star Wars fan I'd ever met. The prop guy, I remember I brought all my Star Wars toys to the set from when I was a kid and gave them to the prop guy and said, could you sneak these into the movie so they'll be immortalized for all time? And he immediately said, dude, I did the same thing. I called my mom 2 weeks ago and had her send all my Star Wars toys, and I've been sneaking them into the movie. So that was the atmosphere. I was like, this is great. This is a movie about Star Wars
This
fans.
thing has
made
to
by
win.
Star Wars
This thing's got Oscar gold all over it. This movie is single-handedly going to make Rush super popular again.
Right. Yeah. It was. I was deluded, but it was all. It all seemed amazing, and like it might actually be a success, or at least a cult hit. I mean, even like for a movie that's that expensive, like $3 or $4 million, even if just the people who are obsessed with Star Wars go see it,
truly love it, sure.
Yeah, and you've got a success. The movie's going to make its money back on video regardless of what you do. And I think what happened is the studio got greedy, and 40-Year-Old Virgin had just come out and been like the biggest comedy of all time, and they thought they could turn it into the 40-Year-Old Virgin by reworking the plot and changing it so that it made fun of fanboys. That was their impulse. It was made by Star Wars fans, so it was kind of irreverent, I mean,
it's sort of like the only reason you got away with the name fanboys, and we forget that fanboys was a negative word. I mean, it's it was like, hey man, that's our word. You don't get to use that in public about us.
Yeah. But once they started testing it, like the first time we showed the movie anywhere, it was at Star Wars Celebration in Europe, in London, and it got a standing ovation. The Star Wars fans lost their mind over it, and that was the first cut that nobody had messed with except for the director. But as soon as they started testing it in Los Angeles, it got good numbers, but not like through the roof. Not everybody's blown away by it numbers, and they thought they could tinker with it. And some of the feedback cards said this really the dying friend thing is kind of a downer. Yeah, it's also the whole heart of the movie and the whole reason that it's the whole call to adventure. It's the whole reason they go on the trip. And somehow the studio got into its mind that they could shoot a new version of the movie that completely removes the dying friend storyline, so that they just go on the trip just because they're nerds and they want to see it early and they don't want to wait, which turns them into trespassing jerks that are totally unrelatable.
Sure.
And it rips the whole heart out of the movie, which is what it did. And then when they started, and by then people had been hearing about this movie and waiting to see it for years and hearing about it online. And then once they started to test this new version of the movie and people started to review it and say there's this new version of Fanboys where the kid's not even dying and they just, and the guy who took over, like they took the movie away from us, hired a different director who didn't even know who Boba Fett was.
Wait, that's not a lie? That's not an exaggeration?
How do you know? Did you have like a conversation? Because this sounds like a
production
personal
designer was there on set with him, and he was describing him this giant Boba Fett standee that they had to put in the set for George Lucas's office. And the guy said, "Which one is Boba Fett? Is he the one? Is he the robot?" And then just everybody standing around in awe. This is the guy now who is at the helm of Fanboys.
Oh,
who doesn't
my
know
God.
who Boba Fett was. And there are still scenes shot by that guy in the movie that just make me cringe. But that's, I mean, yeah, if you don't know who Boba Fett is or IG-88, you don't get to work on my Star Wars fan tribute movie at all. But he did. But once that happened, that's when the word got out on the internet, and that's when Stop Darth Weinstein was born. People started photoshopping Harvey Weinstein's head onto a fat Darth Vader, and the Weinstein Company logo onto the side of the Death Star. The imagery and the iconography was all there to paint them as this, as the evil empire who had taken this Star Wars movie.
Is that story true? That on a visit to China, like they told someone that a common greeting was to call him Darth Weinstein or something?
No, he was wearing. What I heard on Gawker, it was on Gawker that someone showed up in a Stop Darth Weinstein T-shirt. One of the ambassadors of China showed up and greeted Harvey Weinstein in a T-shirt that said "Stop Darth Weinstein" and didn't know what it said. Somebody had given it to him as a prank on Harvey Weinstein, and by that time he had had enough. He had had enough, and I heard that he called
not
Spacey,
a legendary patience on Harvey Weinstein.
No. For a little $3-4 million movie, like it had turned into this. People were calling him Darth Weinstein on the street, and people were threatening. There was like an online campaign. They got couple 100,000 emails.
Now, meanwhile, like at some level, you have to be flattered that people are trying to protect the heart of your creation. But in another part, you got to be crapping a brick because it's like, hey guys, this is my break. Could you please not piss off my boss?
No. By that point, by the time that I saw the cut of the movie, because they flew us all out and they had to show it to us, and I remember sitting with the director. And the other screenwriter and the production designer, all of us sitting in a room and just watching this butchered version of our movie. And by that point, I didn't want that version to ever see the light of day. Like if that was going to be, the
oh my God! So you had to have that realization. You sit down and you've got the misgivings. You don't know how you're going to feel about it, and it begins. And you've got to be.
I knew, Brian. I knew how I was going to feel about it. But when I saw it, it was just as bad as I had imagined. And even worse. And by that point, like I was glad that Star Wars fans, that's the other thing too. They just didn't understand they were messing with Star Wars. Like this is the first and only movie made about what it means to be a Star Wars fan. And there are 1 or 2 Star Wars fans out there around the world who take it pretty seriously. I don't know if you guys are aware of this.
I don't know if you heard this. Sure, yeah.
But so it was like the Kraken. It was like the Kraken was released on the Weinstein Company. And what I heard was that after that Stop Darth Weinstein T-shirt in China incident, that he called Kevin Spacey's producing partner and said, "All right, enough is enough. You can have your little Star Wars nerd movie back. Could you just please turn off the internet?" Quote unquote. So they said, "Yes, well, Harvey, we'll turn off the internet," and he gave the movie back to us. And then the craziest end of that story is after finishing the movie in 2006, and then 2.5 years of watching them butcher the movie and not knowing what's going to happen, and then they finally gave it back to us. Then we got to go, me and Kyle Newman, the director, got to go to Skywalker Ranch and do the final sound mix on Fanboys.
Wow.
So 10 years almost to the day after writing this little movie about breaking into Skywalker Ranch, I got to go to Skywalker Ranch, and they let me in through the gate, and I was there for like 3 or 4 days, like watching them do the sound mix on Fanboys, and they gave us access to the entire Lucasfilm sound library. So when you hear when you hear R2D2, like the on the top of the van activate, that's Ben Burt. That's the original R2D2. There's like Millennium Falcon sounds and blaster sounds and everything. They would just pull it up in the giant master computer under Skywalker Ranch and plug it in. And the craziest one of that, I don't even know if you know about this, Brian, is there's a scene in the movie where Carrie Fisher plays a nurse, and she helps out the fanboys and escape from a hospital. And Linus, Chris Marquette's character, kisses her and says, "I love you." And while we were doing the final sound mix, it occurred to us, like, oh, wouldn't it have been awesome if we had had her say "I know," like she does in Return of the Jedi? But we didn't think of that, and we didn't didn't have, but while we were there at Skywalker Ranch, we said, well, we have access to the whole Lucasfilm sound library.
No.
So we asked if we could use "I know" from Return of the Jedi, and right while we were watching, they called and said, well, let me check, and they called over and asked George, and he asked what the context of the scene was, and they told him, and he said, sure.
Yeah.
And in like 5 minutes, they found that clip of dialogue from Return of the Jedi with no sound effects or anything behind it. And
I think it's Empire. I don't want to.
Oh, no.
It's Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
when
Leia says, yeah, by the way, who the hell do you think you are, Justin Robert Young? This guy wrote Fanboys.
Says, I know, in Empire Strikes Back. And then in Return of the Jedi, Leia repeats it, and he says, I sure do love you. And then she says, I know. So,
see? Wow.
So you sit corrected. Anyway.
Guess who feels like an asshole? Guess who looks like an asshole? All right, go ahead.
I don't really want to challenge the writer of Fanboys to a Star Wars nerd.
I don't. And I did.
Right, okay.
Because I'm that big of an asshole. I'm that big of an idiot. My hubris has swallowed me up whole.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm taking this way too far.
No. This is exactly right. This is great. Okay, so real quick. So the movie comes out, and you have to be a mixed bag of emotions. And I remember after the movie came out, we talked about you got another movie optioned, and in your mind, I have to assume that I am a screenwriter. I do screenwriting. Blah blah blah. How does Ready Player One come about? How do you make that transition?
Well, I had the idea way back before I ever sold Fanboys or Fanboys got made. I think I had the idea way back in 2001, 2002, and started to write it. And first I thought it might be a screenplay, but then once I had the idea of all the pop culture references, all the puzzles and riddles, that this Willy Wonka-esque video game designer would leave behind being based on his passions, then I realized it would have to be a novel and that it could never be a movie. And it seemed like a very big idea. And when I started to try to write it, It was my first time trying to write a novel, and most people are smart and try to write a small personal story as their first novel. But I was trying to write this giant, sprawling science fiction space opera, virtual reality.
that any smart author would actually design something that could scale huge and become a movie, a book, a video game, and all these other things. But you deliberately give the finger to all intellectual property and have all these crazy cross references with giant robots and things that would never work out in real life.
Right, and that was freeing to me, and it was partially the experience of Fanboys and the other screenplay Thundercade that I sold. Both of them, once I took them to Hollywood and started to work with studios to try to get them made, I saw that their natural impulse is to de-geekify what I write and tone it down and make it less, less me and less, the stuff that I love, and dilute it and make it more, because they're in Hollywood, they're interested in making a product. A movie is a product, and they want that product to appeal to as many people as possible in as many countries as possible so they can make as much money as possible. And that's not necessarily conducive to art, and it's definitely not conducive to what I do. And it's, and so I wanted to try to write something that with nothing between me and the audience, so that I could just geek out at the maximum level that I wanted to, with nobody telling me how to do it. And that seemed, and I would always wanted to write a novel, and so that, that seemed like the way to do it. But it was a daunting task, and my first attempts at it were really frustrating, and had like kind of an unfocused, rambling mess of a first draft that I could never finish, and I would set it aside, and sometimes for like a year at a time, and go write more screenplays, and then I got wrapped up in Fanboys for a few years and forgot about it. But I always kept coming back to it because I always believed in it, and I could never let go of the idea. And by then, I've been telling people that I've been writing a science fiction novel for 6 or 7 years. I was that guy, like, yeah, Ernie's writing a book, and someday it's going to be done. And I just wanted to try to finish it for myself. And when I sold the option on that second screenplay, Thundercade, which still hasn't been made, but the option money was enough for me to quit work in tech support and stop doing technical writing and just make finishing this book my full-time job. And that right around 2008, 2009, when that happened, that's when I just stopped doing everything else and decided to devote myself to finishing this book that I didn't even know if I could get published. I wasn't even sure if I was just writing glorified fan fiction.
Well, you don't know if you're that if you're that ass that's busy, filling every fantasy you have, like a revenge fantasy against Hollywood. You're like, I'll show you, I'll cross-pollinate all your properties.
No, well, that was what I was doing. I was just doing fun, and I'd grown up, like you guys, I'd grown up immersed in pop culture and surrounded by it. And you do this with your toys. You have Star Wars fight guys from Tron and Star Trek and Godzilla, and you mash it all up and have the ultimate sandbox that you have.
Sure.
And also, growing up playing Dungeons and Dragons and Car Wars and GURPS and Space Master and Star Frontiers and all these different role-playing games that teach you to jump from genre to genre with your friends. That this is my first novel, so all of that came out in my first novel, like not feeling like there were any boundaries. And once I decided it could never be a movie, then I could fictitious use allows you to do whatever you want. You can have any soundtrack you want. You can have any actors or anything.
That's a really good point, because you can say the words Oingo Boingo in the background, and you can't stop me from picturing whichever, Dead Man's Party going on in my head. By the way, if there's one reason you should not ever mess with the fans, it's their ability to self-organize in extraordinarily quick ways, as is evidenced by this screenshot just sent over to us of us live right now in front of a Blu-ray of Fanboys. That is amazing.
I definitely look the most dorky of the three.
You look like you just told us to shut the hell up. I think that's when you were telling off.
Well, I think it was right after
I was explaining.
I did completely embarrass myself. Well, let me ask you this real quick, because you mentioned that you didn't quit your job in tech support until around 2008, and I think that's one of the things that when you work creatively, especially in Hollywood, that people don't really connect, that it can many times be the opposite of a lucrative financial decision, even if you sell something, because of how long development goes, and things like rent and bills still need to be paid.
Well, it's such a bizarre crapshoot. Like, you just don't know. There are so many chain yanks that you get out there. There has to be 20 chain yanks for every one opportunity that actually pans out, and especially in a Cinderella story like yours that turns out to be a major hit. At what point did you let go of your cynicism, or have you? Did you ever?
Well, Ready Player One, like the date June of 2010. I had finished this book and it wasn't sure I would ever be able to sell it, and then I got like a small, like my first offer was like 25 grand, and I thought that was really good for a first-time novelist writing this weird science fiction novel that I wasn't sure was going to appeal to anybody but me and maybe Brian and like 10 other.
He wrote it
geeks.
for 3 of us.
Yeah, I was like, and I thought I might have to put it out on the internet. I thought like Random House or whatever publisher would look at this and like, you can't publish a book like this. I thought it would be like the Buckaroo Banzai fan script that I wrote, and I would just have
which,
to
by
put
the
it out on
way, I thought was rad that you made because, of course, at the end of Buckaroo Banzai, and this is nerdception that we're getting into. At the end of Buckaroo Banzai, it says, stay tuned for Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League, and I love the fact that you're like, how come that hasn't happened? Well, maybe they're just waiting for me to write it, and so I'll write that movie.
Just out of sheer nerd compulsion. I had spent so much time imagining, just like episode 1, I'd spent so much time imagining what that movie would be, and I knew from the dismal box office and even just trying to force that movie on some of my friends, like, dude, I do not get what you love about Buckaroo Banzai, but I just loved it to death, and I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to write it as a writing exercise to see if I could write a screenplay. So the first screenplay that I ever wrote was the sequel to Buckaroo Banzai, and then I ended up seeing it for sale at comic book conventions.
Wait,
and
your
eBay.
script? You saw your script showing up as a bootleg?
I went to a comic book shop in Seattle and saw it for sale on a giant rack of scripts, real scripts for other movies, and then there was my script with my name on it, and I remember taking it up to the counter and saying, "Hey, I wrote this. Can I get a discount?" And they said, "No, you can sign it, and we'll sell it for more." But yeah, I would.
Is this before or after Ready Player One?
This is long before. This is like before Fanboys. This
Oh
is like,
my God!
Wow.
Yeah, this is like 2001.
That is awesome.
I bet you that script's worth way more. You should have bought it then. You could have made money.
I should have. Yeah. Well, it's up on my website now for free because it's never going to get made. The guys who own Buckaroo Banzai, they tried for years to make it as a TV series and get another sequel made. And I don't know, with the 80s Renaissance now, and Ready Player One too, and Fanboys, I've stopped imagining or guessing at what's possible now. It seems like if they can make an Avengers movie that kicks 12 kinds of ass, just that I remember sitting down to watch the Avengers, and there's a Spider-Man 4 trailer and a Batman 3 trailer before it. And I'm just like, what sort of nerd golden age have I entered now, where every property and every movie you could ever imagine getting made as a kid is now getting made and being done well. I heard you guys talking about Spider-Man. I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I remember going to noorganicwebshooters.com
Yes.
when that first dude. I was too. I'm like, because you're right. That's such a part of his character, like him running out of web fluid and having to use like his improvise and
or the times where I remember there was one graphic novel where he got kidnapped and sent to Italy, and they're like, we got your chemicals there, make your stuff, and it's like it made the wrong mix and it wasn't strong enough, so he had to doctor together some other juice.
Well, they just completely and for no payoff. Like it's an organic web shooter. Like it's just another power that happens, and it adds to lazy writing complications of all of a sudden, like it runs out for no reason, and you can write any reason. There's no stakes to it.
The source of that, I don't know if you know this, is James Cameron's original treatment. James Cameron for a while was going to direct Spider-Man, and he wrote a treatment, and he was the guy who came up with organic web shooters, and he had Peter Parker having to drink gallons and gallons of milk to replenish his web shooters, but they kept that. That was a James Cameron idea that somehow got carried over into the Sam Raimi. But yeah, it never really makes sense because there's just from a scientific standpoint. I mean, I know you can't apply science to Spider-Man, but yeah, where's all the organic material coming from inside his body that he's shooting these?
You would think you'd get tired.
I'll say this, and in the new movie, a lot of and especially the reason why the lizard is just a great villain in this particular story is a lot is made of cross-species genetics. And it's like for a world that we live in where we're talking about finding the Higgs boson in real life, as crazy and unrealistic as something like cross-species genetics is, as a movie preference, it's not insane. It's like we just live in a crazy world where it's like if that popped up on your feed in your RSS reader, or people are started talking about it and forwarding it. It was on Reddit that somebody had made a breakthrough.
Oh wow, yeah, no, I'm not surprised.
It wouldn't be
so much crazy. Yeah, no, I concur. I think we've diverged into talking about Spider-Man. Well, that's all right.
I'll tell you,
I think you see it early. Was there a screening here in town?
No, I think Brian is muted.
I'm sorry. That's good because I was yelling at you. I actually muted it because I was filling up my my soda. When I was making jokes about about Ernie saying, "I thought the focus was supposed to be me, Justin."
Yeah, can we move the conversation back to me?
And how
can we get back to other things that didn't happen?
All right, real
Empire
quick.
Strikes Back.
There's a bunch of things that I really wanted to talk about, and we just don't have time. Let me dial it back to the big issue. You planted an Easter egg in the same vein as the story itself. And of course, for those of you who don't know, if you're an idiot who has rocks in your skull and you need to just kill yourself right now if you haven't read Ready Player One, but if you've read it, you know that of course the whole story of the book is about hunting down Easter eggs in the Oasis. And much as the main character, or I guess what's the name of the main guy?
Wade was.
No. Sorry, the Richard Garriott. Much like Richard Garriott in your
Halliday.
book.
James Halliday.
Much like Halliday, you planted an Easter egg in the book. Was this? Did you know exactly what you were going to do from the first printing of this book, or did you just think, I'm going to put this Easter egg in there. I don't know what I'm going to do, but it'll be awesome when I decide to spring it?
Well, I always knew that once I sold the book to Random House and then sold the movie rights to Warner Brothers, I knew that it would probably be a big book and that would give me the opportunity to maybe hold a contest. It seemed like perfect meta thing to do, to hold a contest that mirrors the contest in the book to help promote the book. It's just like a natural idea and one of the first things I thought of. And so, and there's actually a book in the story called Anorak's Almanac, which is like a diary that the eccentric billionaire leaves behind, and he hides a clue in that book. So I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome to hide a clue in Ready Player One exactly the way that Halliday hides a clue in Anorak's Almanac, and then maybe I could link that to the contest idea that I had. And I wanted to do a contest for the hardcover, but I didn't really have the resources or the time. I was too busy working on the screenplay of Ready Player One, and also just preparing for the book tour and all of that. But I had hopes that maybe further down the road for the paperback, I would have time and the resources to do something. So I talked them into hiding the Easter egg. I wanted to hide it in the ebook version too, but because of the way that, because the Easter egg has to do with certain letters being printed abnormally, there was no way to do it in ebooks without giving away the secret. So it only appears in the print editions, so I'm not trying to screw over people who bought the ebook. But even if you just read the book, you could probably guess at what the hidden web URL. It's a URL.
Actually, I could not. Okay, real quick, and I got to pull back the curtain just a little bit here because I've made no secret, like to the tune of sending you nervous texts, like I want one of our fans to be the one to win your contest. And I understand there's all kinds of weird legal BS that you got to do in order to make this stuff win. And I don't want us to be the bad guys from the books. It was the Sixers, right? That was the bad guys. Yeah. I don't want to make us a bunch of Sixers, but I definitely want whoever wins to feel gratitude to our show and put a little Etcha laser insignia on the DeLorean to pay tribute to the show. Like, okay, and specifically, this is totally real now. I did not find the Easter egg, but somebody who did find it showed it to me, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant, and I said, I am undeserving of participating in this. Plus, also, it would be a douchebag move. But it's like...
No, nobody found it, Brian. That was a New York Times bestseller. It was out for 10 months. That whole 10 months between the hardcover coming out in August and the paperback coming out in June, I kept expecting somebody to find it and send me an email and say, hey, by the way, I found your little Easter egg, or post it on their blog or something. Nothing. Nobody found it until I told everybody there were... On June 5th, the day the paperback came out, I made that video announcing, hey, there's an Easter egg hidden in the book, and that's when people realized...
Which, by the way, directed by Mike Henry of the Electric Lounge fame, which was made it even more awesome for me.
Out at Highland Mall. It's really... I live near Highland Mall. It's really handy owning a DeLorean and having a kind of semi-abandoned mall
really
nearby
is.
that you
It's
can go
pretty
shoot
ghetto
DeLorean
now.
videos at, because that's really the ideal place to shoot your DeLorean, is at an empty mall at night. So that's what we did, and and by that time, like, I knew. So the way that I was able to put the contest together after hiding the Easter egg was the book came out, and video game designers all around the world started to email me because they loved the book, and a lot of them were mentioned in it. I would get emails that would just scroll and say, I feel like you wrote this book just for me. It help me recapture my whole childhood. And then at the bottom, P.S. I'm the guy who invented Battlezone. You know, like amazing stuff like that. Like Warren Robinette, who put the very first video game Easter egg in Atari 2600 Adventure.
Sure.
Like, I got to correspond with him because he found out he was in the book and that I mentioned Adventure because it was the main inspiration for hiding the Easter egg. And so I sent him my Adventure cartridge from when I was a kid, and he signed it and signed the instruction manual. And so crazy stuff like that started to happen. Meeting Richard Garriott, because he found out, I said in interviews that the main character Halliday was kind of based on him and Howard Hughes, and he lives here in Austin.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the time. So so I sort of developed these relationships with real video game designers like Mike Micah and Kevin Wilson, the guys who helped me make this Atari 2600 game based on my book. Video game designers would just email me and say, hey, if you ever want to make a video game, let me know. And I immediately jumped all over them and said, yes, I want to run this contest. Yes, I want to make a video game. Will you help me? And these guys, and there's a specific chapter in the book where Wade describes making his own Atari 2600 game that's based on the stacks and living in the stacks and avoiding meth addicts and all of that. And I said, I want to make this game. And so they said, let's do it. And they made the game for me. And once that started to happen, I realized that could be the first challenge.
Okay, so you've already opened this up. The first challenge is an Atari 2600 game that you can either play in an emulator or play in a JavaScript thing and experience. And you've got 3 gates. The second one opened up on July 1st. Next one opens up on August 1st, right?
Right. And so the one for July is already open too, and that kind of is out of the bag too because it's a Facebook game, and it's a Facebook game created by Richard Garriott.
Okay.
Wow.
Which, by the way, somebody, one of our favorite fans of the show texted me like, "Oh, you got Ernest Cline on. Can you ask why it's a Farmville clone for the second gate?" And I read your note, and it says it wasn't you. It was Richard Garriott wanted to make this game, right?
No, well, he had made the game already. Like when I met him, I saw what they were working on and saw that it was this collector game. And the character of Halliday in my book is a huge collector, just like Richard Garriott. Richard Garriott has like 10 barns full of
everything.
He collects everything. And if you've ever seen video of his house on YouTube, he's a huge collector. And so it makes perfect sense for him to make a collecting game. And it's not just Farmville. You can collect. When I saw that you could collect vintage 80s toys and lunchboxes and action figures and things like that, I'm like, oh, this is a perfect place for me to hide one of the challenges in my game because. Yep. And so I asked them, I showed them the Easter egg and said, there's going to be this Atari game as the first gate, and I would love to make the second gate like hidden inside your game. And their game was about to go into public beta right when I needed it to happen.
Oh, that's great.
And it was just too perfect because I grew up playing all the Ultima games, and Ultimate Collector is kind of based on the Ultima online kind of third-person Diablo engine. It is a Facebook game, but that's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand. I think they expected me to spend I don't know, millions of dollars to develop video games, but I had to kind of hide. The Atari game was easy because just two guys could make that.
Right.
But I wanted the next one to be harder and more elaborate. And the fact that Lord British, who's one of my childhood heroes and the inspiration for Halliday in my book, allowed me to hide my second Easter egg in his Facebook game, which everybody can play for free. It's too perfect.
This is another awesome connection because one of my earliest paid gigs as a fire eater was for Lord British doing one of his Renaissance parties, and I got paid I think it was $150 to eat fire. And at first I thought I was told I'd be off to the side, just eat some fire here, wear this loincloth, you'll be kind of like a crazy, everything's supposed to be Renaissance garb. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm like a wild man, I guess. And at some point they're like, okay, now go eat fire for Lord British. And as I'm walking up to Lord British, who's sitting at this feast table surrounded by all these people, everyone in Renaissance garb, in my mind I'm a little stick figure walking up to a guy with a big grin and a shield and a staff doing this, and I realized I am eating fire in the court of Lord British. It was freaking amazing. But okay, yeah. Here's the important thing. I want one of our team to win, and I gotta know what lines personally for a friendship would I be crossing to give a big old fat hint to our team to start on the quest. Yeah, can I hint at how to find the Easter egg or
are we talking about the first one or the second one?
Once you find the first, you got to get through all of them to get caught up.
Yes.
You got a month.
The way that it works is there are 3 hidden keys, and the keys are website addresses. The first website address is hidden in the book.
Right.
And if you read the book, it's not that difficult.
Okay.
Okay. Nobody found it. It was out for God knows how long, and nobody found it. So it obviously was.
But now that you know that it's there, and I've already said so there's a book in the story. If you read the story, Ready Player One, the eccentric billionaire who holds the contest leaves behind a diary called Anorak's Almanac, and in that diary there's a clue that the main character finds. And it's a typographical clue hidden in the text, and so the clue in Ready Player One is hidden in the exact same way.
Okay, that's what I wanted to say because I was overthinking it. I thought, oh well, it's a print edition, which means it's something specific to the way it's printed. It's probably like the first letters and lines all down the side or whatever, but it's not. Basically, read the book, and how Wade found the first clue is how you will find the first clue, literally.
Yes, exactly, and so. So that first clue is a website address that leads you to the website that hosts the Atari game, and then hidden in the Atari game is another website address that leads you to the second challenge, which is the Lord British game, and hidden in that game, once you complete that, in that Farmville clone, which it's not. It's awesome. It's a really fun game. And in this game, you basically have to collect all the different parts to build a DeLorean time machine. You have to collect the flux capacitor, wormhole emitter, time circuits, like all these different parts, and build a DeLorean. And once you've built a DeLorean, then that unlocks the next clue, which is another website address that will lead you to the third challenge that goes online on August 1st. And it does, even if you're just hearing about the contest now, you still have time to catch up, because it doesn't become a race to the finish until August 1st. So you have up until July, the last day of July, to complete the first two challenges. And then on August 1st, when I announce the last challenges, that's when everybody will race to the finish. And the first person to complete all three wins the DeLorean.
All right, this is it. I'm talking to you guys right now at home.
DeLorean, for those of you who don't know the stakes of this game, is that you are giving away a clone of the car that you've been driving around from stop to stop all over the country. It is another DeLorean.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Okay, look, real quick. Again, I'm talking to the folks at home. I want one of you guys to be the ones who win that, and we're going to talk about some other stuff. But first of all, wow, this is very unusual for us to find ourselves so swept up in such an interesting interview. We got to do some horse apple shenanigans. We got to do some stupidity. Otherwise, it's not an NSFW.
Yeah, real quick, before we get into anything else, let me just do one wrap-up interview question for you.
All right.
Because we talked a lot about the process of fanboys and the agony and the ecstasy of that going from a very small project to something very big, and then the problems that came through it. You have optioned the script for Ready Player One. You wrote the screenplay. What is that process now, and how does it compare to your experience with fanboys?
Well, it's different because kind of the great thing about writing a novel and having a novel option is once the novel comes out, it has its own audience and has its own life, and the book is always going to be the way that I want it to be. But also the fact that the book has become a bestseller, both in hardcover and paperback, makes the studio a lot more invested in being true to the source material, because they know there's an existing fan base. And this is Warner Brothers, and they made all the Harry Potter movies, which I think are about as faithful as you can be to the source material while still making the story cinematic.
Sure.
Similar to the Hunger Games. Like, they knew they couldn't mess up the Hunger Games because there's all these people who loved it and knew the book. So I feel like there's a good chance of that happening in Ready Player One, but there is the licensing issue. There's a lot of stuff, and if you're going to be exactly faithful to the book, you need permission from a lot of different people. But the good thing is that Warner Brothers is the biggest movie studio in the world, and they have a huge library of 80s movies and music and video games, and other people I think are likely to allow their products to be and IPOs to be used in the movie because they see that it's a tribute to all of that stuff. And I'm hoping what happened with like Who Framed Roger Rabbit happens with Ready Player One, where people realize that was kind of a tribute to the history of animation, and that's how you ended up having Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, in the same scene together, is because there was like a perfect storm of
I believe the only thing that they requested was that each character or each property get equal screen time, and as long as it was balanced, everybody was happy with it.
Yeah, so maybe that could happen again. I don't know. What I'm hoping is that if they have to change certain things, that they'll change them in such a way that War Games would get swapped for the Manhattan Project or something like that.
Oh my God, the Manhattan Project was amazing!
Right? Instead of
all
a kid starting
World
War III, a kid that builds a nuclear bomb for a science project. It's awesome. If you love War Games and Real Genius, then you would dig the Manhattan Project. So yeah, that kind of thing, where if it's not, we can't use the exact thing in the book, then it's something similar or something in the same spirit of it, which could make watching the movie even more exciting for fans of the book, just because there are new clues and riddles and stuff to unlock. So that's my hope for the movie, but we're still really early in the development process. There's no director yet. The script is still being developed, and I tell people that if it takes less time than John Carter of Mars to get made, then
you're
I'd
happy.
be pleasantly surprised. Or even Ender's Game. Like, Ender's Game is one of my favorite books, one of the books that inspired me to write Ready Player One, and they've been trying to make that for 25 years and just now finished filming it and are still in post-production. So that took 25 years to get made. Snow Crash still hasn't been made into a movie.
Sure.
So I assume, it could go either way. But then on the other hand, Aragon, that got made right away into a movie.
We saw how that worked out. Yeah, no, that's a way good point.
Yeah,
so you would
anything
find yourself more.
Yeah.
So you would find yourself more patient with this particular process between the book already being out, you being able to express these ideas creatively to a mass audience, and the previous experience of having gone through all this. And
yeah, well, it just makes me want to write books now, man, because now I see that. Now that I see, like, well, and I've always had that opinion. If you're a fan of books, books are always better than the movie because the book plays out in your head, in your mind's eye, and the sets are always perfect. The special effects are always awesome. The casting, the dialogue, performance, all of that is exactly as it should be because it happens in the reader's mind. Where in a movie, you're limited to what you can make happen in front of the camera or with computers. But you know, but I still love movies, and I still want to make movies. But I see that now, like, books are that its own medium, and that's why you should never be angry at like a bad adaptation of your favorite book, because the book is always going to be there for you, you know. And if the movie didn't work out, then maybe they'll make another version of the movie later on, like with Spider-Man, you know. Like, it's never,
Sure.
it's yeah.
No,
it doesn't go away. You just make it again.
Away. Yeah,
that's fine. I'll tell you, like with like Watchmen, like people are like, oh, I don't know, I didn't like the Watchmen movie. It's like, number one, they can make Watchmen again tomorrow. I'd go see it. If everybody got together and did a community theater adaptation of Watchmen, I'd go see it. I just love that story.
Right.
Doesn't matter if they all suck. One time there could be something really good, and I like the Watchmen movie. But I mean, if they made another one that was 5% better or worse, I'd love it.
No, exactly. Yeah, if you're upset that there's no giant squid, why don't you just sit down and thank your lucky stars that movie even exists? The chances of there even being a Watchmen movie that takes the source material seriously and like lovingly recreates every detail, you know, like, just shut up and enjoy it. You know, but that's the thing. I mean, and I have that impulse too. It's part of the impulse of being a geek is to pick everything apart and, you know, and complain about what you don't like, and you know that you're entitled to do that. But at some point, you know, you can't let it just ruin your enjoyment of everything, and I think that's like a problem that some people have. Even
if they take your favorite line away from Dr. Manhattan at the end of the movie.
Okay, come on. Okay, get it together, man. Be professional.
I'm just saying, that line changed my life, and instead they have it be a stupid aside between.
All right, look. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. We'll play one stupid game, and then we'll wrap things up here. All right, go ahead, Justin. Who else is sponsoring the show?
We don't have a second sponsor.
Yes, we do. It's your friend and mine, Andrew Main, and his latest book, Pharaoh Killers.
Hello?
No, it's Andrew Main's latest book, Enemy Patient 5.
Sounds good.
It's Andrew Main.
I have no idea.
And his book, I don't know. I'm having
another sponsor?
All right, I think we'll. All right, well then in that case, it's brought to you by me, Brian Brushwood. Don't forget, Scam School Book 2, now available on iTunes and the Kindle bookstore. It's only the greatest thing I've ever done, and I'm including this little gem right here.
T-T-F-O!
All right, look, we're going to take you down, Ernie. I'm sorry. You've had a long and prosperous reign on top. We think
I've
it's great.
already demonstrated how great I am at trivia.
Trivia? All right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Question number one is,
if anything, and by the way, let me
see
pull
my
back the
hands
curtain. I didn't want to do this bit initially because I'm like, okay, Brian and Ernie are going to just absolutely, smoke me in this, and my thrill to do this 80s trivia bit has just, ballooned ever more since I completely ate my own balls on air. Now.
Every so often, Ernie, we get the idiotic idea that we should let the lunatics run the asylum, and in this case, I just sort of kicked out to the chat realm. We said, hey, you guys should cook up an 80s trivia quiz, and we three will compete and see who wins. And we had an opportunity to make it something that we could manage, but instead, I, in my infinite wisdom, said, "No, you guys just go, go nuts. Whatever you do." And so now let me go ahead. I've got to send everybody links to this stuff. I'm sure. Oh, you know what? Here's the link right here. Okay, first of all, I have to run things manually. It'd be too much for you to do it live. So you can press you can use the ping T2T2 button to tell me stuff like speed it up. Otherwise, just yell at me at chat. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to send a link to Ernie, and I'm going to send a link to, okay, real quick. There's Ernie's link. That's your link right there, Ernie. You got it?
All right, I got it.
All right, let me go ahead and set you back in a separate window. Justin, I don't know how to get you your link. Do you have a computer in front of you?
I do.
Okay, right on. What should I send it to? I'm going to direct message it to you. How do you like that?
I can open Twitter.
Okay, so that means that you think I'm wonderful. Great. Okay, and then I'm going to open my link right here, and I will I'm ready. Yes. Okay, hold on. We got to get some serious heavy duty. Okay. Yes. Here it is right here.
All right.
It is the super challenge of 80s knowledge.
Super challenge.
Okay, so it says waiting for start. I assume at this point, it says it's waiting for Justin to log in. Justin, tell me when you've logged in here. And by the way, I should give a quick moment to thank T2T2 in the chat realm, maybe one of the most passionate defenders of the coding that goes into the behind-the-scenes stuff on NSFW. I cannot wait. I am so very excited for this. I'm going to click, it says lock in. I'm ready to go. Justin, have you clicked
ready.
in? Everyone is agreeing that T2T2 is awesome. And now he says ready. So now, okay, there it is. The first question. What 1980s movie video game adaptation ended with the following phrase? Congratulations, you have completed a great game and proved the justice of our culture. Now go and rest, our heroes.
Empire Strikes Back.
You know what? Here's the thing, is I'm gonna say that proved is misspelled here because it's spelled correctly. I'm gonna say, here we go, I've locked in my answer right there.
I locked in my answer as well.
I've locked in. Oh, look at this, it even glows our names. T2T2 is amazing, dude.
I clicked on my answer. And
You gotta
it's not
click
logging
on
it in.
lock in down at the bottom.
Oh, all right.
There it is. All right. And so now, I don't know if he's going to change it himself or I have to do something. Can you reveal? Wait, there it is. All three of us got Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I think Heroes gave it away.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
I only know that because.
Because you wrote a bit for it on Game On.
Yeah. I've already locked in my answer for the second one, so you guys can
Holy
catch up.
cow, he sure did. In Back to the Future Part 2, what year was Emmett Brown sent to at the end of the film? Oh, I know that one. That's easy. Locked it in. Justin? Oh, wait. Oh, all three of us? Same one?
Yeah.
Boom.
I believe Cloud City was the answer to that.
Which hit by Canadian rock band Rush? Okay, all right. What asshole put a Rush question on with Ernest Cline as our guest?
Yeah, we'll lock that in.
Dang it. I don't know Rush for nothing. I'll just do that. You never know.
Yeah, that's a big guess.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Hey,
Screw you
look at
guys.
that.
Oh, yeah.
What? Oh my gosh, Ernest Cline. Wait. Oh no, okay, it was. He was showing the other ones. For a second there, I thought.
You thought I got it wrong?
Look at that. All right,
shamed?
that's a big fat guess from me, and I'm doing better than you, Brian.
Yeah, all right, well, screw you then. Which of these TV mystery crime dramas was not only the most successful, but the longest running? Magnum P.I., Remington Steele, Simon & Simon, or Murder, She Wrote? It's got to be Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, it's got to be. That went on forever. She just would not die.
She would not stop solving those murder mysteries.
Yeah. You're
Let's
helping
see.
Justin, Brian. By
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that's
no,
just not-
I'll start lying. I'll start saying that's got to be
I
whatever.
already locked that in before Brian even clicked it.
Okay, what is the literal translation to the name Nintendo? Is it, quote, your life will have no meaning, thank you playing, to the stars and beyond, or leave luck to heaven? Wow. I'm going to say your life will have no meaning.
And that would be mean.
I'm going to say this deal gets worse all the time.
I actually changed my answer to another one. Ernie?
Yeah, I think that it was leave luck to heaven. That sounds kind of Japanese.
Let's see.
No.
Wait.
No.
Wait. The answer is... Oh! Leave luck to
that's
heaven! So Justin and I are tied now. All right, here we go. What deleted scene in the movie The Goonies was mentioned at the end of the film? Oh, that's an easy one. I know this one.
That's an
It's
easy
definitely, is it the giant octopus scene, the smoking of the map scene, the blending of Chunk's hand scene, or the scene where Sean Astin finally admits his love to Elijah Wood?
I'm locking in the joke answer.
All right, I'm locking in. There it is, the giant octopus scene. Bing bong. Now, did you remember that moment in the movie theater, like being confused by that part?
By then there's always 12 kids talking over each other in the Goonies, so I think I just rolled with it. I never wondered about the giant octopus, but I remember hearing about the giant octopus.
Oh yeah, totally.
In Starlog, I think.
No, I totally noticed it at the time. I was like, there ain't no giant octopus. What the hell is that? And I suddenly turned into like an urban guy at that point.
What did the Berlin Wall fall?
What year did the Berlin Wall fall? Was it 1982, 85, 88, or 89?
I think it was 80. Let's see.
I am locked in, and all three of us picked 1989. The answer is 1989. What Cheers actor also had a role in The Empire Strikes Back? Was it Woody Harrelson, John Ratzenberger, Rhea Perlman, or Kirstie Alley? Wow.
I think she was actually in Jedi.
It's never gonna get old. I'm gonna say John Ratzenberger. I'm locked in.
Yeah, that seems like it could be plausible.
Oh, wait, all of us say John Ratzenberger, and the answer is... Wow. What was John Ratzenberger in that?
He was probably a stormtrooper, scout trooper, or something.
No. If I remember correctly, I think he's one of the rebels on Hoth. If I remember correctly, like you see him and his mustachioed face walking around with the Purina logo.
Yeah, with the Purina dog chow symbol on his chest,
I love that both of us went there. What 1984 computer was the first commercially successful PC to feature a mouse and a GUI? Was it the Apple II GS, the Lisa, the Macintosh, or the Xerox Alto? Gentlemen, what do you think? I'm actually going to switch away. Commercially successful seems like I've locked in my answer.
Yeah, me too.
Let's see. Oh, I went away from the pack on this one. It's the Macintosh. Oh, it was the Macintosh.
We're knotted up. One more time, Brian.
7, 7, and 9. Let's face it, we all expected Ernie to win this.
We're all playing for second.
That's right. Which one of these games was not on the list of games the Whopper system in the movie War Games? Okay, this is hardly fair. Chess, gin rummy, theater-wide tactical warfare, or urban combat? I'll just go ahead. I've got mine. Boy, Ernie's fast on this. Yep, there we go. Urban combat.
That actually the wording of that question, theater-wide tactical warfare, I think that question was worded incorrectly. You guys can check that later, but whoever put this test together, I think they got that wrong.
What?
Yeah.
All right, we'll find.
That was close, but I think it's actually theater-wide biotoxic and chemical warfare. But anyway, let's move on.
What? Oh my God! What are we thinking, taking him on? All right. What's on the plates of the space flying car?
Locked in.
On the last
easy.
Starfighter.
So easy.
Coden, Rylos, Out of Time, or Trantor. Hold on, I gotta go back. We ran out of heartbeat sounds. I guess I don't know. I'll do Trantor. Nope, it's gonna be Rylos. There we go.
I mean, like, I have no idea, but the only thing I have there is I can knock out two of them as fake.
You host a show with a guy who hasn't seen The Last Starfighter, Brian?
I'm fixing that immediately. Welcome the new co-host of NSFW, my friend Ernest Cline.
Yes!
I would sign off on that tomorrow.
All right. In the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what painting is Cameron staring at the Art Institute of Chicago? Oh, man, I can visualize it, but I don't know the name of it. Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte, the banks of Seine, the pine tree of St. Tropez, or the flowers. I've got it. I'm going to do... there's that. I'm going to lock it in. Wait for it. Wait for it. Is it Sunday afternoon or the flowers? Oh, yes! Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte. Wow, man, you're good, Ernie.
That's the one by Surratt with all the dots, where you pans in on the dots. Yeah.
Which one of these phrases did Jack Burton say in the movie Big Trouble in Little China? What the hell? I'm an asshole playing with myself. I'm going in. Or where's the president? That's an easy one. I'm gonna do. You know what old Jack Burton says? All right.
All right.
Justin, you picked? There you go.
Oh.
All three of us. You just tell him what old Jack Burton says. What the hell?
All in the reflexes would have been a better one.
Wow. Let's see. What is the maximum possible score a player can achieve in Pac-Man? God damn it. You're... 99999 33333 60 25 60 000 or 250. I'm gonna do that one. Locked in. Yes! Wait, Justin, you picked 250?
Yeah, 250.
That's his maximum score.
What high C,
Exactly.
what high C flavor did Slimer promote? Slime and lime, protoplasma, ecto-cooler, or fruit punch? It's gotta be ecto-cooler. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Wow,
Eat through your
man.
Stomach, but,
Tiebreaker for 2 quadrillion Brian bucks. The U.S. release of the NES game Legend of Zelda makes a reference to a feature on the Japanese Famicom. Which feature is this? A modem hookup, a microphone, a turbo button, or better sounding music? Wow. I'm going to cut away. I'm going to do...
For your answer?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to lock in my answer. And I'm going to wait until Ernie...
Legend of Zelda.
Wow, we've already gone in. This could be our point.
Not sure about this. I've never actually seen a Famicom console.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm trying to estimate what it would be like. A modem hookup, I think, is too much. And why would they give you it? All right.
Look at this.
Well, we all have
3 different answers. So it's not a turbo button. It is not better sounding music.
Rats.
I'm shocked.
It is not a modem hookup. It's a microphone. God damn it, Ernie. You won everything. Not only do you win at life, you win at our challenge. You are truly the captain of 80s trivia. But Justin, you gave a very respectable, finish.
No, I didn't.
Wait, that was the wrong music here. We should play this music right here. There we go. All right, look, Ernie, where should people go to see more of your awesome stuff?
ErnieCline.com or ErnestCline.com, whichever. I'm a nerd. I registered both just to be safe.
God, I loved, you were so ahead of your time. I love that you kept the 2600 aesthetic on the website. You brought it into the freaking Ready Player One. It's freaking magic, dude.
Thank you, dude.
You deserve all the success you've had and so much more, and I'm so thankful that you had the time to slum with us. Justin, where can people see more of you?
Ernie, and let me thank you so much for being so awesome and candid on the show. I mean, I think.
Oh, dude, I had a blast. I'll come back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. You were super awesome. So thank you very much.
Man.
See you guys next week.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah, man. Do me a favor, guys. Die in a Fire. Do me a favor. Go see Rooster Hair, the musical, coming out from the director of An American Tail and All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Then do without Justin Robert Young for even a little while. Oh, NSFW. I love you.
Welcome to Movie Draft Minute for the week of July 2nd, 2012. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas. There are 9 more films in the draft left to come out. What will happen? Here comes week 15. Sarah Lane's in 6th place with $35 million. Veronica Bellin's in 5th place with $189.2 million. Justin Robert Young's in 4th place with Ted bringing in $54.4 million this week, bringing his total to $269.8 million. Brian Brushard's in 3rd place with $569.9 million. Tom Merritt drops to 2nd place with $622.4 million. And reclaiming his 1st place status with $627.6 million. It's Scott Johnson. And with that, week 15 is done, and that is your Movie Draft Minute for the week of July 2nd, 2012.
All right, man. Look, what an unusual episode of NSFW, where we had an opportunity to have such a candid and awesome conversation with somebody who will shape geek culture for the next, couple of decades. How badass is that, man?
Dude, it was certainly something, man. That was awesome. That was an awesome conversation.
Oh, by the way, theater-wide tactical warfare. Although he also says he pointed out theater-wide biotoxic and chemical warfare.
So they're both right.
They're both right. Touche, sir. Hey, we should check in real quick. We wanted to talk about the our book, right? bit.ly/the Diamond Club book. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Let's. I think we wanted to go over it with Ernie, but I don't know what else we're going to talk about with it.
Just check in, remind everyone, because I'm sure all this will show everything. Look at this. It says here, the Diamond Club document locked until the end of the show. Also, hi Ernie. Look, we got a lot of juice in here, and by juice I mean human fluids being shot all over each other in the sexiest way possible. We keep those contributions coming. I'm very pleased with the sexiness and the bodily fluids and the banging that I'm seeing so far.
It's the one rule, folks. The one rule.
Lots of banging. God, we got too excited with Ernie's genuinely fascinating personal story that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Holy crap, we got hundreds of pages. Hundreds of single-space pages. Yes. This is amazing. Brianna travels to IHOP after a satisfying night at the Diamond Club, but finds herself hungrier than ever. With my hungry libido satisfied for the evening after my encounter at the Diamond Club, I found myself wandering around the town in the early hours of the morning, surprisingly famished. My striped heels clacked on the warm pavement, calming my mind. I felt confident, cool, and alive. Suddenly, I sniffed in the sweet scent of blank pancakes, wondrous waffles, and blank omelets. My nose led me to the local IHOP, a breakfast realm I had not entered before. As I passed through the threshold, I looked at the bright colors, the empty tables, and oh my, the savory greeter behind his post. I scanned his name tag. Michael, it read. Michael's skin matched the color of perfectly prepared waffles, and his eyes held the color of bursting blueberries. This is perfect. What? Why are you looking that way?
No, I'm trying to read it because there's a larger screen here, and I couldn't read it.
I thought you were doing this like it's too much for me. I can't.
No. It was very erotic, and I like it's Boner Town 24/7 with that book. So I mean, everybody keep writing there. I guess in the coming weeks, we'll be paring down which chapters we're gonna go with. Me and Brian have yet to write our chapters, and we will. We'll have a book, and
by the way,
I guess by next week, do we want to set a release date?
We're gonna wrap things up next week. You got one more week. If you're listening to this, hurry up. Head on over to bit.ly/The Diamond Club book. Go ahead and contribute your chapter because we're gonna go ahead and cull everything and wrap things up. By the way, the one thing that unfortunately we will not have is this chapter by Padre S.J. The Franciscan. It says here, I had a chapter written that documented the torrid love affair between, is that Father Nathan Samuel Francis Walters and the lovely Brianna under the dim copper lighting of a cheap faux antique oil lamp as the wind blew against the corrugated walls of the priest's love shack. Unfortunately, I was told by one of my Jesuit brothers that it would probably be better if that chapter died with me.
You know, I'll tell you what, that's really crazy because I actually wrote a chapter with the exact same characters and character names. So it's nuts that if you know, whether or not he sent that to me, I'm the one who wrote that chapter.
Sure.
So publicly.
No, that's good. All right, look, we're going to wrap things up. We love each and every one of you guys. Do us a favor. Why don't you die in the fire? Your line, Justin?
Well, we already did the line. We did it when we ended the show.
Well, one of us says die in a fire and the other says...
We did, but we did before. I have to say it again. See you next Tuesday.
Yeah, all right. No, I'm sure that's just as good.